Billionaire installed cameras to watch his paralyzed twins. What the new maid did left him frozen. The camera blinked red in the corner of the nursery. Preston sat in his office 40 miles away, staring at 3 monitors mounted on his wall, one for each room where his 5-year-old twin sons spent their days. Samuel and Benjamin, 2 identical blonde boys with blue eyes that once sparkled with mischief. Now they sat in specialized wheelchairs with red frames, their small bodies still, their gazes downward. A car accident 18 months ago had changed everything. Preston's wife had not survived. The boys had lost the use of their legs, and Preston had lost the ability to be present. The guilt was too heavy. Every time he looked at his sons, he saw the crash, the choice he made to drive that night despite the storm. The moment everything shattered, so he hired the best doctors, the most expensive therapists, the most qualified caregivers. And he installed cameras in every room. He told himself it was for safety. But the truth was darker. He was watching his sons from a distance because he could not bear to be close. 17 caregivers had come and gone in 18 months. Some lasted weeks, others only days. Preston would watch them through the cameras, finding reasons to let them go. Too rough with the boys, not attentive enough, followed the wrong protocols. But the real reason ran deeper. He was punishing himself by making sure no one could do what he had failed to do, keep his family safe. The employment agency called that morning with exhaustion in their voice. "Mr. Harrison, we have one more candidate, but she is not what you typically request." "What do you mean?" Preston asked, his eyes already on the monitors. "She has limited formal training, but she comes highly recommended from a family who employed her for 8 years. She is young, only 28, and she is asking for a live-in position." Preston wanted to say no, but he was running out of options. "Send her this afternoon." Her name was Camila. She arrived at 2 o'clock wearing a navy blue dress with a white collar and apron, her dark hair pulled back neatly. Preston met her in the foyer of his mansion, already preparing his list of strict requirements. But before he could speak, a sound came from upstairs. Not a cry exactly, more like a whimper. Camila's head turned immediately toward the sound. "Your sons?" she asked. "Yes, Samuel and Benjamin. They are 5 years old. They were in an accident. And may I meet them?" Camila interrupted gently. Preston was taken aback. Most caregivers wanted to discuss salary, schedule, responsibilities first. "Of course," he said slowly. They walked upstairs to the large sunny room where the twins sat in their wheelchairs. A white crib sat in the corner, remnants of when they were younger. Colorful toys scattered across the floor, untouched. The boys looked up when the door opened. Their expressions were neutral, practiced. They had learned not to get attached to the people who came to care for them. "Hello, Samuel. Hello, Benjamin," Camila said, kneeling down so she was at their eye level. "My name is Miss Camila. I heard you both like building blocks. Is that true?" Samuel looked at his brother. Benjamin looked at the floor. "They do not really play much anymore," Preston said quietly from the doorway. Camila did not respond to him. She simply sat down on the floor, cross-legged, and began arranging the colorful building blocks in front of her. She built a small tower, then knocked it down, built it again and again. After several minutes, Samuel's eyes lifted to watch, then Benjamin's. "You know what I think?" Camila said, still playing. "I think these blocks are lonely. They want to be picked up and played with, but they need help. Would you boys like to help them?" It was such a simple invitation, but it held no pressure, no expectation, no judgment. Slowly, very slowly, Samuel reached out his hand. Preston watched from the doorway, his breath caught in his throat. Samuel had not voluntarily reached for a toy in over a year. That evening, Preston sat in his office watching the monitors. Camila had moved the boys to the floor, supporting them with pillows and cushions. She sang softly while she played with them, not children's songs exactly, but gentle melodies that seemed to come from somewhere deep and true. The boys were not exactly playing, but they were watching, and that was more than they had done in months. Over the following days, Preston watched. He watched Camila arrive each morning at 7. He watched her greet the boys not with pity but with genuine warmth. He watched her spend hours on the floor with them, never rushing, never forcing. On the 4th day, something remarkable happened. Preston was in a video conference when movement on one of the monitors caught his eye. He muted his microphone and leaned closer. Camila was kneeling between the two wheelchairs. Her hands were clasped together, and Samuel and Benjamin had their small hands pressed together too. They were praying. Preston's hand went to his mouth. His wife used to pray with the boys every morning and every night. He had stopped after the accident. Stopped praying, stopped hoping, stopped believing there was anything worth asking for. But here was this young woman, teaching his son something he had taken away from them. He watched as Camila whispered, too soft for the camera to pick up. Then the boys whispered something back, and then something happened that made Preston stand up from his desk. Benjamin smiled, a small, fleeting smile, but real. Preston left his office without ending the video call. He drove home in the middle of the afternoon, something he never did. When he walked into the house, he heard laughter, actual laughter, coming from upstairs. He climbed the stairs slowly, his heart pounding. Through the open door, he saw Camila lying on her stomach on the floor. Samuel and Benjamin were out of their wheelchairs, supported by specialized cushions, and all three of them were racing toy trucks across the wooden floor. "Mine is winning," Samuel said, his voice stronger than Preston had heard in months. "No way, mine is faster," Benjamin argued back. Camila looked up and saw Preston in the doorway. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Preston saw something he had not seen in any of the other caregivers. She was not doing a job. She was loving his children. "Daddy," Samuel called out, noticing him. "Miss Camila taught us a new game." Preston walked into the room, his legs feeling weak. He sat down on the floor near his sons, something he had not done since the accident. "Can I play too?" he asked, his voice rough. Both boys looked at Camila as if asking permission. She smiled and nodded. "Of course your daddy can play. He probably needs someone to show him how." For the next hour, Preston sat on the floor with his sons. He rolled toy trucks, he stacked blocks, he listened to them talk, really talk, about their favorite colors, about dreams they had, about things they noticed through the window. And for the first time in 18 months, Preston felt something other than grief. He felt present. That evening, after the boys were in bed, Preston found Camila in the kitchen preparing things for the next morning. "Can we talk?" he asked. She turned, her expression calm, but her hands clasped nervously. "Of course, Mr. Harrison. I saw you praying with them," he said. "I hope that was appropriate. I should have asked your permission first." "No," Preston said quickly. "It was perfect. My wife used to do that. I stopped after she passed. I did not know how to continue without her." Camila nodded slow. "Sometimes we think that continuing old traditions will hurt more, but actually they help us remember that love does not end. It just changes form." Preston sat down at the kitchen table. "Why do you pray with them? Is it part of some technique?" "No, sir," Camila said gently. "I pray with them because they need to know they are not alone, that there is something bigger than their pain, something that holds them even when everything feels broken." She paused. "And because I learned that when I was young and lost my own father, prayer gave me a place to put my sadness without drowning in it." Preston felt tears building behind his eyes. The other caregivers, they followed protocols, they did exercises, they maintained schedules. "But they did not see your sons," Camila said quietly. "They saw disabilities, challenges, tasks. Your boys are not tasks, Mr. Harrison. They are children who are grieving their mother and confused about why their father has disappeared." The words hit Preston like a physical blow. "I did not disappear. I am working to provide for them. With respect, sir, they do not need your money, they need you." She met his eyes directly. "I watched you today on the floor with them. That is the first time I have seen them truly happy since I arrived, not because of the toys or the games, but because their father was there." Preston put his head in his hands. "I do not know how to be with them. Every time I see them in those chairs, I see the accident. I see what I took from them." "Mr. Harrison," Camila said gently, "you did not take anything from them. An accident took something from all of you, but what your sons need now is not your guilt. They need your presence." She sat down across from him. "May I tell you what I see when I look at Samuel and Benjamin?" Preston nodded, not trusting his voice. "I see two strong, brave boys who wake up every day in bodies that do not work the way they used to, and they keep trying, they keep living, they keep hoping. Do you know how much courage that takes?" She leaned forward. They do not need you to fix them. They need you to sit with them, to play with them, to let them know that they are still your sons and you are still their father, and that nothing about the accident changed, that—" Preston wiped his eyes. "I've been watching them through cameras because I could not bear to be in the same room. And now?" Camilla asked. "Now I see what I have been missing." That night, Preston did not go back to his office downtown. He stayed in the mansion, and the next morning he was there when his sons woke up. He joined Camilla for breakfast. He sat on the floor during playtime. He learned the prayer she had taught them, and that evening, when it was time for bed, he was the one who tucked them in. "Daddy," Samuel whispered. "Are you going to leave again?" Preston kissed his forehead. "No, buddy, I'm staying right here." "Forever?" Benjamin asked. "Forever," Preston promised. Over the following months, the mansion transformed. Preston worked from home most days. The cameras remained installed, but he rarely watched them anymore, because he was there, in the room, on the floor, holding his sons' hands during therapy, cheering when they made small progress, holding them when they cried from frustration. And Camilla was there too, not as an employee, but as part of the family. She taught Preston how to see strength instead of limitation, how to celebrate small victories, how to pray not for miracles but for presence, for the ability to show up fully even in pain. One afternoon, Preston found her in the garden with the boys. They were on a blanket, in their wheelchairs nearby, and she was planting flowers. "The boys chose the colors," she explained. "We thought it would be nice to plant something that grows." Preston knelt down beside them. "And I help?" "We were hoping you would," Camilla said, and as they worked together, dirt under their fingernails, sun on their faces, Preston realized something. Healing was not about going back to how things were. It was about learning to live fully in how things are. His sons would never walk again. His wife would never return. But love remained, and presence remained, and that was enough. That evening, as he watched Camilla read stories to his sons, Preston understood she had not just cared for his children. She had shown him how to be a father again, not by erasing the tragedy, but by teaching him that broken things can still hold beauty, that wheelchairs do not define worth, that grief and joy can exist in the same moment, and that sometimes the greatest gift we can give is simply to show up, to be present, to love without conditions. The cameras still blinked in the corners, but Preston no longer needed them, because he had finally come home. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that presence is the most precious gift we can give, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment below about someone who taught you how to show up for the people you love, even when it felt impossible. Your stories help us all remember what truly matters. Thank you for listening.